We're witnessing this take place right now with the redistricting effort across the country in Republican states at his behest, at his direction. He's asking for it. And largely, the mainstream media is absolutely asleep at the wheel. I am wrapping up the final days of my trip here to Japan. Brittany Page and I have had a wonderful time. Last night, I'm going to do a video about this tomorrow, but last night we encountered a protest, an anti-Trump protest in the streets of Tokyo that I want to talk about. But let's get to that tomorrow. Today, let's talk about the continued and increasingly unhinged nature of Donald Trump. It seems as though every time he feels a lull in his authority or attempting to pretend he's president of the United States, he runs to Truth Social to act like an abject, crazy person. Someone who is detached from reality, absolutely unhinged. And yesterday was no different. Donald Trump, over the course of his time as president, his time in politics, his time as a political leader, has given bad advice. Nearly every time he opens his mouth, he does something that endangers the American people in general. But more importantly to Donald Trump, he endangers his followers. Yesterday on Truth Social, he did the thing that he loves to do where he plays doctor, whether that be not playing doctor in the childish sense, although I'm sure he loves that as well. Just ask Stormy Daniels or any other person he's paid for sex. He wants you to avoid medication. He wants your children to avoid medication. It's not quite to the level of asking you or suggesting that you inject bleach or some other kind of disinfectant into your body to kill COVID or shine light into some orifice because light kills it in a matter of seconds or whatever nonsense. He put this out on Truth Social, this all caps grandpa screed where he can't spell the word hepatitis correctly. I don't know if he can't spell chicken pox or thinks it's chicken pea. But this is what he posted. Pregnant women, comma, and then all caps, don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary, comma. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason, comma. Break up the MMR shot into 3 totally separate shots, parenthetically, not mixed. Take chicken pea shot separately. Take hepatitis spelled incorrectly, B shot at 12 years old, comma, or older, comma, and, comma, importantly, comma. Take vaccine in 5 separate medical visits, exclamation point. President DJT. And then he cites a Daily Caller article. Not credible journalism, not a credible outlet. The Daily Caller was founded by Tucker Carlson, if that gives you any information about their accuracy or dedication to accuracy. He did not stop there, though. In fact, I think the more important post of yesterday comes in his adherence to election conspiracy and his promise, his signaling that he's absolutely going to interfere in the 2026 and 2028, the 2026 midterms and the 2028 general election. I talked just the other day before the weekend about Steve Bannon's promise, his admitting that there is a conspiracy underfoot of right-wing individuals to interfere in the 2028 election, up to and including the violation of the 22nd Amendment of the Constitution, which prohibits any president from having a third term in office. Donald Trump posted this. What's worse, the NBA players cheating at cards and probably much else, or the Democrats cheating on the elections? The 2020 presidential election being rigged and stolen is a far bigger scandal. Look what happened to our country, capital C for some reason, when a crooked moron became our president. I'm gonna stop right there. I think we all know what happened when a crooked moron became president of the United States. We're experiencing it right now. We experienced it at noon on January 20th, 2017, when he was inaugurated the first time. This absolutely crooked, increasing his net worth by orders of magnitude, Donald Trump is a crooked moron who is president of the United States. The same moron who can't spell the word hepatitis, or at the very least doesn't see fit to use a spell checker on his iPhone when he's tweeting on his personally owned social media network. I assume he means Biden, who in no way, under any understanding of what a moron is, was a moron or is a moron. We now know everything. I hope the DOJ pursues this with as much quote-unquote gusto as benefiting the biggest scandal in American history. If not, it will happen again, including the upcoming midterms. No mail-in or early voting. Yes to voter ID. Watch how totally dishonest the California prop vote is. Missing millions, of ballots being shipped. Get smart, Republicans, before it's too late. This is absolutely Donald Trump signaling that he is going to interfere, that he will rig the 2026 election. And I don't mean through conspiratorial means. We're witnessing this take place right now with the redistricting effort across the country in Republican states at his behest, at his direction. He's asking for it. And largely, the mainstream media is absolutely asleep at the wheel. CBS's Margaret Brennan, who is now just an underling, she is subservient to wild bigot Barry Wise, who now runs CBS News, had the temerity, had the gall, had the absolute lack of ability to see what has happened in the past and what is currently happening, and then base a judgment around those two things to see what is very possible going to happen in the future. And she asked the minority leader of the House of Representatives, Hakeem Jeffries, about how dare you? Why are you asking? Why are you suggesting that Donald Trump will rig the election? You said that talking about rigging an election is bad. Why are you saying this? Missing the moment. Not reporting accurately on what has taken place, what is taking place, and what will indeed take place. Watch this.
I want to ask you about something you said. You said Democrats, there are no election deniers on our side of the aisle. You said that back in January. But recently, you've been using the term rigged elections in reference to the upcoming midterms. Democrats were appalled when President Trump used language like that. How do you justify using that now? Doesn't that undermine faith for voters? You need to show up.
No, I've been using that term in the context of Donald Trump's unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps in a partisan fashion all across the country in order to rig the midterm elections and deny the ability of the American people to actually decide who should be in the majority as it relates to the House of Representatives.
You know, Democrats are also going through gerrymandering and redistricting.
No. Well, Democrats are going to push back aggressively to make sure that we have fair maps across the country, not partisan gerrymandering, which Republicans have initiated in state after state after state.
Corporate media has absolutely lost the plot. Margaret Brennan has zero credibility whatsoever in this space. CBS is no longer a trusted outlet. For decades and decades and decades, they brought us newsmen, news reporters like Walter Cronkite, and now this is what we have because of the right-wing takeover of CBS News, which, by the way, as an aside, they are seeking Bret Baier, the chief correspondent, the straight newsman from Fox News, to lead CBS News. The guy who spends holidays at Mar-a-Lago golfing with Donald Trump. That's who they want to be their Walter Cronkite. And as they look the other way while Donald Trump and the Republicans openly, publicly, not just signal that they're going to rig it, they are attempting to do so, and they're not even hiding it. And her question is for Hakeem Jeffries. How dare you suggest that there's rigging taking place? Absolutely disgusting. I'll leave it there. I would love your opinion on this. You can comment below wherever you're watching the video, whether that be Facebook or YouTube. When do Republicans do you think? I mean, a rhetorical question. The answer, we don't know. When do you think they'll wake up? What low is too low? How far is too far for Donald Trump to go to behave? Look, I don't want to gross anybody out. I don't want to have you worrying about losing your lunch. But this story is important because, one, it does tell us about who Donald Trump is and what his priorities are. But also, something that is underreported in this story is that even his staffers, even those closest to Donald Trump, who know him the best, who know him the most intimately, are very freaked out about his obsession with getting Russell VOUGHT laid. There's going to be some language in here. We'll bleep it because I don't know if you're at work, you don't want to hear me saying a whole bunch of times, but it is what it is. Donald Trump talks the way he talks, and for us to ignore it or try to look the other way or dumb it down or make it more palatable isn't an effort to talk truthfully about the reality that we all are living in. Listen to this headline from the New Republic. Trump obsessed over Project 2025 creator getting at Mar-a-Lago. Donald Trump spoke about it to Russell VOUGHT so much that it weirded out some of the president's advisors. Now, I don't know how much you know about Russell VOUGHT, but he is a self-proclaimed mighty, righteous man of God, an evangelical stalwart who talks about family values, who certainly in his philosophies of religion and his belief in what the Bible teaches him, that premarital sex is a sin. It is an evil that breaks down the family unit. It's the same thing I was taught as a child growing up in right-wing evangelicalism. And this is the guy who's now having Donald Trump be his wingman, trying to get him laid at Mar-a-Lago. And I'm not even going to get into detail about the depravity that has taken place at Mar-a-Lago, the sex trafficking that has been dispatched out of Mar-a-Lago. It has been a central hub for crimes against children, Mar-a-Lago. And this is where Russell VOUGHT is having Donald Trump be his wingman. Here's the article. Before Russell VOUGHT became the director of the Office of Management and Budget, he was Donald Trump's side project. In the background of Trump's 2024 presidential campaign, the Republican presidential candidate and the Project 2025 architect shared regular calls, though the topic wasn't always politics. Instead, Trump was fixated on getting the recently divorced VOUGHT laid. Reported Zateo Swin Subsang, I'm probably mispronouncing that, and I apologize if I am, Swin, reported on Tuesday. VOUGHT's ex-wife, Mary VOUGHT, of the Heritage Foundation, of course, these birds of a fascist feather flock together. VOUGHT's ex-wife, I don't know if I've been calling him VOUGHT. If I have, it's only because of the fascist superhero, the evil superhero show on Amazon, The Boys, where the evil company is called VOUGHT. So it's difficult to keep them straight. VOUGHT. VOUGHT's ex-wife, Mary VOUGHT of the Heritage Foundation. Again, fascist birds of a feather apparently continue to flock together. Of the Heritage Foundation had left him in 2023. Trump, in turn, appointed himself as VOUGHT's wingman. Quote, Trump spoke to VOUGHT, a self-described Christian nationalist who's now one of the president's most hardline enforcers, about the gorgeous and beautiful ladies who roam Trump's club, Mar-a-Lago, so often that it weirded out some of his advisors, sources told Zateo. I would say this, that I am heartened by, at the very least, he's talking about VOUGHT hooking up with, having sex with a grown woman and not a child, which Donald Trump has been credibly accused of raping. Quote, and Trump spoke crudely of all the quote-unquote that VOUGHT would surely get as the president's favorite bachelor. The report is a crass and unsurprising illustration of the president, who famously boasted on a hot mic that he grabs women quote-unquote, by the before millions of Americans voted him into the nation's highest and most powerful political office for the first time. But Trump's gross language doesn't bode well as his administration continues to bungle the release of the Epstein files. Now, This article goes on. I'll link to it below. I would suggest you read the entire thing. This article absolutely goes through and accurately describes Donald Trump's behavior and some of the controversy he faces right now relative to his decade-and-a-half-long best friendship with disgraced, convicted child rapist Jeffrey Epstein, his continued talk about pardons of Ghislaine Maxwell, the co-conspirator, the accessory to child abuse with Jeffrey Epstein, and Donald Trump is the accusation. When do Republicans, do you think, I mean, a rhetorical question, the answer we don't know, when do you think they'll wake up? What low is too low? How far is too far for Donald Trump to go, to behave? I've said this many times, it remains true. I know people personally who believe that Donald Trump, they're not in my life, they're not friends, they're not they're beyond acquaintances, but I don't associate with them anymore, who believe that Donald Trump is a church-going, mighty, righteous man of God, someone who is God-fearing, someone who has said the sinner's prayer, who is born again, who is a representative of Jesus the Christ on earth. There are millions of people who believe this. There are millions of people who will never hear about this story, and that is why it is incumbent upon all of us to share these stories, to get this information, whether it be sharing this article or this video itself on social media. Talk to your friends, your acquaintances, your family members who are in the Trump cult to try to wake them up, because without some level of evaporation of support off Donald Trump's base, it's going to be more and more and more difficult to get rid of him. He is the worst of the worst. He is the worst among us. Rather than looking to a president to try to put someone in place in office who is worthy of the office, we've done the exact opposite. Thank you, MAGA. We appreciate it so much. Gross. Gross. You know, but at least Russell Vought's getting laid, right? I guess that would be the question. Was Donald Trump successful in coercing some poor lady into lying with Russell Vought, the gross goblin-like character, co-shadow president with Stephen Miller? What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it.
I don't know. They cheated on a commercial. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs, and they said he didn't. And I guess it was AI or something. They cheated badly. Canada got caught cheating on a commercial. Can you believe it?
One of the problems with having an 80-year-old, demented, memory, cognition suffering president is the fact that he cannot accurately determine what is reality and what is not. We've seen him share AI-created videos of himself saying things that he did not say, which should just naturally lead you to the question, can he not discern between what is real and what is fake? When he sees video of him that's AI generated, that is fake, when he sees it and shares it, does he just not, does it look so real to him that he thinks, oh, I must not remember saying that, but this is real? The medbed thing, the alien technology thing, all of this is a problem, right? All of it is a problem. So when the Canadian government, the Ontario government, the provincial government led by Doug Ford, when they created this commercial using audio of Ronald Reagan from a speech that actually took place, it was a radio address on April 25th, 1987. Here is a thumbnail from the video from the Reagan Library, the Reagan Library Foundation. The entire 5-minute speech I will link below. You can watch the entire thing. They included sections of Reagan's audio into this commercial, combating the tariffs against them, the destruction of both the American and the Canadian economy. Maybe not destruction, maybe that's a little harsh, but certainly the degradation. Certainly it's a problem globally right now with Donald Trump's whims about tariffs, thinking that he's charging the country. He doesn't even understand how tariffs work. The basic levels of college freshman economics classes, of high school freshman economics classes, he doesn't understand. I guess that's what happens when you're born with a silver spoon stuck into whatever orifice it is crammed into. and you just don't come to any understanding of how the world works. But I'm going to play this 1-minute ad that was played during the World Series. It incensed Donald Trump. He's now cutting off negotiations with Canada. And then I got a clip of Donald Trump who's just claiming that it was AI or something, he says. He says that they cheated on a commercial. I don't even know what that means. But here's the commercial in question. I wanted to give you the context, and then we'll roll through this.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
So that's the ad that uses actual footage, actual audio from Ronald Reagan, right? Here's Donald Trump, though, claiming that it's AI or something and that Canada cheated on a commercial, and this is why he cut off negotiations.
I don't know. They cheated on a commercial. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs, and they said he didn't. And I guess it was AI or something. They cheated badly. Canada got caught cheating on a commercial. Can you believe it?
And look, it's not just a YouTube video from the Reagan Library. I have the actual transcript. There are several screenshots of transcripts from this very address. Again, President Reagan's radio address on free and fair trade on April 25th, 1987. This is from the National Archives, which runs the different presidential libraries. This is something that took place. It is not AI. It wasn't created. It's not cheating on a commercial. And Donald Trump is so obsessed with it, he took to Truth Social, where he, in a grandpa-like, absolutely unhinged and detached from reality post, said this: Canada was caught red-handed putting up a fraudulent advertisement on Ronald Reagan's speech on tariffs. The Reagan Foundation said that they, quote, created an ad campaign using selective audio and video of President Ronald Reagan. The ad misrepresents the presidential radio address and did not seek nor receive permission to use and edit the remarks. First of all, I'll stop myself right there. They don't need permission. It's in the public domain. It's absolutely fair use to use that. The Reagan Library does not have copyright, does not hold copyright of a president's remarks that were made publicly using the resources of the United States government. They don't need permission. They don't need to obtain some copyright exception. It's absolutely in the public domain. He was president of the United States of America. It's public. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute is reviewing its legal options in this matter. The sole purpose of this fraud was Canada's hope that the United States Supreme Court will come to their quote-unquote rescue on tariffs that they have used for years to hurt the United States. Now the United States is able to defend itself against high and overbearing Canadian tariffs, and those from the rest of the world as well, he says parenthetically, world capitalized for some reason. Ronald Reagan loved tariffs for purposes of national security and the economy, but Canada said he didn't. Their advertisement must be taken down immediately, he says in all caps, but they let it run last night during the World Series, knowing that it was a fraud because of their serious misrepresentation of the facts and hostile act, a television commercial containing the words of a former president of the United States, is a hostile act to Donald Trump. This is an escalation of language from Donald Trump. I am increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they are paying now. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, I'll leave you with this. I'll come back after the clip. We'll talk about it a little bit. But here are the sections with video of Ronald Reagan that weren't even included in the Canadian commercial. This was from the radio address, which Reagan used to do on an almost weekly basis. This was recorded at Camp David in Maryland of Ronald Reagan talking into a microphone. Not AI, on YouTube. This is what they used.
Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. Now, there are sound historical reasons for this. For those of us who lived through the Great Depression, the memory of the suffering it caused is deep and searing. And today, many economic analysts and historians argue that high tariff legislation passed back in that period, called the Smoot-Hawley tariff, greatly deepened the Depression and prevented economic recovery. You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity. Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group, who forget that more than 5 million American jobs are directly tied to the foreign export business, and additional millions are tied to imports. Well, I've never forgotten those jobs, and on trade issues, by and large, we've done well.
And again, this is one of the problems we face when you have someone who is in cognitive decline, someone who is detached from reality, at the very least doesn't respect the reality that the rest of us share, trying to make claims, lying. This is something the press isn't calling what it is. They're saying, oh, he's misunderstanding, he's misrepresenting what took place. He's lying about it. It's either one of two things. He's either lying about this being AI or being cheating or misrepresenting the views of Ronald Reagan by just using Ronald Reagan's words, or he really does believe it's AI. Both are a serious issue. Both put us in grave danger having someone who is this stupid and this dishonest as President of the United States. And I say that with the full understanding that we have had some malevolent characters as president, some psychopaths, some sociopathic individuals as President of the United States, people who owned other human beings as property. Donald Trump is among the worst. Anyway, I'd love your opinion on this. Let's have a conversation in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it, Facebook or YouTube. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. Please consider becoming a supporter of this work. Independent media, very important now. Maybe more important, I mean, everybody says that, more important now than ever. But really, when you've got all these major corporate networks in the tank for Donald Trump, running interference for Donald Trump, it is the work that I do and my colleagues in this space, in this genre, that are, it's very important. So please, if you decide to do it, $2 a month is all it takes. You can go to my Patreon page, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. And you can also do it right on YouTube by clicking the join button below the video, or just right on my channel to become a channel member for $2 a month.
Martha, in case you don't know it, I'm actually a soybean farmer, so I have felt this pain too.
One of the problems with having a president like Donald Trump, who is detached from reality, who is just someone who lies at a record-breaking clip, is the fact that his acolytes, his underlings, the subservient cult members to him, they also do this. They take up the mantle of being liars themselves and say things with just an eye for the ridiculous, knowing that MAGA doesn't care. And Scott Bessent is one of these characters. As much as the right hates George Soros, Scott Bessent used to work for George Soros, and because he is principle-free, he is a liar, he has no dignity, he has no honor, he has now conformed to the manner with which Republicans operate. As the Treasury Secretary, he is enforcing Donald Trump's tariff policies and lying about them every step of the way. I've got a couple of clips here from him. In this first one, he tries to sell to the American people, because of the deleterious effects of Donald Trump's tariff policies, especially on farmers, especially on American farmers. You know, American farmers that are venerated by Republicans. Republicans treat the American farmer like they treat the military, as a prop. They act like, they signal, they talk like they love them and they respect them and they revere them, when in fact they do not care at all. And Donald Trump's tariff policy should lay bare that truth. In this interview with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, she's asking about all of the different things that are taking place relative to the number is zero of soybeans that are being purchased by China, which used to be an almost $13 billion industry for American farmers. Just China's purchasing of the soybeans of American farmers. And she's asking him about it, and he has the temerity, the absolute idiotic gall to say that he feels this pain too, because after all, this man who's worth nearly $600 million is also, I can't even say it, a soybean farmer.
I did mean the second term. I know they have met before. The president has also said he does want our farmers to be taken care of. You did mention that China has been boycotting American soybeans, and American farmers have really suffered. Do you see a real light at the end of the tunnel there? They may allow soybeans again?
Well, Martha, in case you don't know it, I'm actually a soybean farmer, so I have felt this pain too. And there are a couple of things happening here. One, the Chinese have substantially dropped their purchases to almost zero, so they unfortunately have been using American farmers who are amongst President Trump's biggest supporters. I think he had more than 90% support. And then this was one of the biggest crops in 20 or 30 years, so it was a perfect storm. But I think we have addressed the farmers' concerns, and I'm not going to get ahead of the president, but I believe when the announcement of the deal with China is made public, that our soybean farmers will feel very good about what's going on, both for this season and the coming seasons.
Martha, in case you don't know, I'm also feeling this pain because I'm also a soybean farmer. Apparently, he left his overalls in his other dressing room the day that he showed up to do this interview, because in no way, shape, or form is, in the traditional sense of the understanding of the word, Scott Bessent a soybean farmer. Scott Bessent is a wildly wealthy individual who just recently sold one of his many, many houses, more than a dozen, maybe nearly 24 houses. He sold one in Charleston, South Carolina, this giant pink castle monstrosity for like $20 or $25 million. This is his net worth. This is from The Independent. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent fails to divest his financial holdings and hit with watchdog warning. Bessent, a former hedge fund manager, the Independent must have gotten it wrong. They must also be unaware of his deep roots in the soybean farming industry, that he's just a humble farmer, y'all. What do you mean he's a hedge fund manager? Bessent, a former hedge fund manager, reportedly has a net worth of around $600 million. Over $500 million he's worth. That's a lot of soybeans, Scott. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at how many soybeans you've sold to amass that kind of a fortune. Now, let me talk a little bit about where we are with the soybean issue and the fact that directly because of Donald Trump's tariff policies, China has just full stop. They have ceased buying soybeans from American farmers. And the reason that they buy so many is because of when crops are harvested. There are different climates, obviously, all over the globe, and our crops are coming to be harvested right now. And none of them are being purchased by China. In fact, after the bailout, the $20,000 million bailout that the Trump administration saw fit to give Argentina, who elected a man who is just wrecking their economy, needs a bailout from us. China, instead of buying them from Americans, are going to Argentina to buy them from them. Look at this chart and this headline from the New York Times. China bought $12.6 billion in U.S. soybeans last year. Now, it's zero. Not $500 million worth, not $5 million worth. It went from $13 billion. Again, I know I like to drive this home just to kind of impress upon everybody how much money it is. $13,000 million worth of soybeans last year, and now zero. Zero. China stopped buying soybeans from America in May, placing a retaliatory tariff on the bumper crop after President Trump increased levies on goods from China. Look at that stark chart on the very front page under the headline of this article from the New York Times. This is a graphic representation of the damage that Donald Trump is doing to our economy, and more importantly, if there's a Republican out there watching, doing damage to families in America, farmers in America, the same group, just like the troops, that Donald Trump acts like he cares about. He signals that he cares about, and largely a group of Americans who voted for Donald Trump. With all of his tariff talk during the campaign, they still saw fit to vote for Donald Trump. With all of his mass deportation talk during the campaign, they still voted for Donald Trump against their own financial best interest. Why? Some would say economic anxiety. That's not it. It's racism. People are animated by fear of other. They're animated by the lies told by Donald Trump, the racist, white supremacist lies told by Donald Trump. If there is economic anxiety, it doesn't really jive with what's going on. This is from the article. Each week, the Agriculture Department publishes a summary of the latest exports of American crops. Lately, they have all been missing the same thing: the sale of soybeans to China. Soybeans are the single largest American export to China in terms of value, $12.6 billion worth last year. But as the fall harvest, gets underway across the country, 9% of planted beans that have been harvested as of last week. The country that bought 52% of all American soybean exports last year is completely absent. September 1st was the beginning of the new marketing year for soybeans, the starting point for big sales. Instead, China hasn't bought any American soybeans since May. The cause is the retaliatory tariffs China has placed on the United States, making the price of American soybeans unattractive for buyers there. This is one more one more minor piece of evidence that should be waking Republicans up, and I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know when they are going to lose their affection for Donald Trump. The team politics, the game that politics has become, is so pervasive and dangerous that they will continue to vote against their best interests, against the interests of their families, of their grandchildren, of their children, that they're willing to sell them down the river to enrich Donald Trump, to give him one more chance, one more chance, one more chance. And as the saying goes, that past performance isn't indicative of future results, with Donald Trump, it absolutely is. We know what's going to come to pass. Every single, I can't think of one, but it seems to me that every single decision that Donald Trump makes is a bad one for Americans, and it's a good one for him. He will ethics violations, he's enriching his sons, doing deals with the Pentagon. They are raking in billions of dollars. He is increasing his net worth by orders of magnitude while president of the United States, while the MAGA cult claims he's serving for free. He's giving away his $400,000 salary every year. He made the same claim during his first term, and he did it one time that was verified. None of the other times he did. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about this. There were some other clips that you should really go check out on Blue Sky or wherever you're on social media, because Scott Bessent really, he did a number this weekend on the Sunday shows.
To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop you or tries to obstruct you is committing a felony.
Look, I don't know when the media and many Americans are going to wake up to the authoritarianism that is now a part of the fabric of American leadership, American political leadership. It's not creeping authoritarianism. It's not impending fascism. We're here. We are in it. Stephen Miller is the shadow president of the United States of America. He, not Pam Bondi, runs the Department of Justice. He, the Attorney General of the Department of Justice of this country, is she is subservient to Stephen Miller, a non-lawyer. The Department of State, which is by title run by Marco Rubio, isn't run by Marco Rubio. It's run by Stephen Miller. The Department of Homeland Security is not run by Kristi Noem. It is run by Shadow President Stephen Miller. He, just the other day, was doing an interview with Fox News with the B-team dipshit, Will Cain, where he is threatening, again, non-lawyer, not the leader of the Department of Justice, not a Senate-confirmed individual, didn't go through vetting, just hired by Donald Trump, this white supremacist ghoul, little goblin, and he is threatening to effectuate the arrest, the imprisonment of a duly elected governor of the state of Illinois in J.B. Pritzker. This is a remarkable clip that is not getting enough traction because of I don't know why, but the reason it is important is because it is abject authoritarianism on full display being broadcast to an international audience, and largely the media is just asleep at the wheel. Watch Stephen Miller, again, not a lawyer, doesn't understand the specific elements of crime that would be a predicate to arresting a governor. What he does know is that he has an unfettered ability to speak, and his authority holds weight because he is the shadow president who runs 3 massive departments of our government.
J.B. Pritzker could be arrested. Let's talk about your willingness, and under what federal authority do you arrest a sitting governor? I understand the supremacy clause. I understand interference with a federal officer. Tell me how it works that he would make himself susceptible to being arrested.
Well, the answer I'm about to give doesn't only apply to Governor Pritzker. It applies to any state official, any local official, anybody who's operating in an official capacity who conspires or engages in activity that unlawfully impedes federal law enforcement conducting their duties. So if you engage in a criminal conspiracy to obstruct the enforcement of federal immigration laws, or to unlawfully order your own police officers or your own officials to try to interfere with ICE officers or even to arrest ICE officers, you're engaged in criminal activity. Different kinds of crimes would apply. There is obstruction of justice. There is harboring illegal aliens. There is impeding the enforcement of our immigration laws. And then as you get up the scale of behavior, you obviously get into seditious conspiracy charges, depending on the conduct, and many other offenses. So again, it depends on the action, it depends on the conduct, it depends on what is taking place. But what we need to reassure, a couple points. To all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties. And anybody who lays a hand on you, or tries to stop you, or tries to obstruct you, is committing a felony. You have immunity to perform your duties, and no one, no city official, no state official, no illegal alien, no leftist agitator or domestic insurrectionist can prevent you from fulfilling your legal obligations and duties. And the Department of Justice has made clear that if officials cross that line into obstruction, into criminal conspiracy against the United States or against ICE officers, then they will face justice.
Seditious conspiracy, says Stephen Miller. Seditious conspiracy, a crime that was charged and convictions were secured of insurrectionists who attempted to overthrow the United States government. Oath Keepers, Proud Boys were convicted of seditious conspiracy as part of their attempt to literally overthrow the United States government by way of trying to overturn a free and fair election. These are the crimes that Stephen Miller, non-lawyer, tiny man, believes that J.B. Pritzker is guilty of. And that he wants to direct all ICE officers, quote, to all ICE officers, you have federal immunity in the conduct of your duties, and anybody who lays a hand on you or tries to stop or obstruct you is committing a felony. Telling an already rogue, masked secret police force that they have immunity to conduct any behavior that they want is authoritarianism. It is fascism. It is dangerous, for as much as they whine and cry about these men are just following orders. They're just trying to get back safely to their families as they kidnap people off the streets of the United States, as they hold hostage American citizens. And Stephen Miller wants to punish. He wants to arrest. He wants to imprison a governor of a state, a democratically elected representative of millions of Americans. This is where we are in America in 2025. This clip, not getting traction on mainstream media, not being talked about, the alarm bells not being rung by Jake Tapper or Margaret Brennan or Kristen Welker or any of these other ghouls and goblins who are profiting very mightily from their positions of power and influence in our media. They're not talking about it, because they're safe, or they feel safe. What do you think? I would appreciate your participation in this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video. You can do so on Facebook, on the Dollemore Daily Facebook page, or on YouTube. Please subscribe to both. Like and follow on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. It is free to do so. I would appreciate your support in that way. Share this video with someone who needs the information. And after you've commented, or if you choose not to comment, you can call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. Please, if you have it within your financial means, $2 a month, you can help me produce these videos. You can go to my Patreon page, which is first and foremost the best way to do it, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast, or you can become a channel member on YouTube for $2 a month. Just click the join button below the video or just on my channel. I would appreciate it very much. The other way to support, you can go to dollemore.com, buy some merch. We're actually ramping up to sell The Grateful Child, the children's book that my best friend wrote after his brush with death on vacation last year. It is a beautiful tribute that reminds everybody about gratitude and not taking the small things for granted. You can find that at dollemore.com. It's called The Grateful Child, or you can get it on Amazon, anywhere else. Here is a little bit about that. Many of you are aware that my dear friend and brother of choice, not of blood, Brett McAfee, suffered a near-fatal medical emergency last summer while our families were on vacation in Scotland. I appreciate to no end the outpouring of support for Brett that you all gave, and I'm also very happy to report that he is safe and healing and working that long path of recovery. What I've probably not told you about Brett is that beyond being an excellent friend, he's also a talented writer. We have been the best of friends since we were kids, and I have been continually inspired by his creativity and by the truly singular take that he has on life. Over 2 decades ago, he wrote a poem called The Grateful Child. It's an acknowledgement of all the simple strengths that we tend to overlook. Written from the perspective of a young person, multiple grateful children express gratitude to their parents for the elements that make them who they are. The accounting of these everyday gifts inspires a clear reminder that we should not take anything for granted. I've shared Brett's remarkable poem with numerous people over the years, and a reoccurring response is that this should be a book. Well, we finally decided to listen to those people. The Grateful Child is not only a children's book for adults in your life, it's also an adult's book for children in your life. Everyone will appreciate its straightforward yet elegant celebration of life's little endowments. Click the link below to pre-order now, or simply scan this QR code and order your copy or copies today. But this being an illustrated book, we could not survive on the words alone. To pair with Brett's touching words, we searched all over for an illustrator who could bring The Grateful Child to visual life. We landed on somebody right here in the community from this show. Leah Farshid is an internationally acclaimed illustrator who, like you, is also an audience member. The moment we saw the first images that Leah drew to accompany Brett's text, we knew we had a perfect combination. It brings me tremendous joy to share my best friend's beautiful poem and Leah's spectacular images with the world. Everyone can benefit from The Grateful Child, just as I benefit from Brett's lifelong friendship. Share this beautiful book with your children. Share it with your parents or other relatives. The Grateful Child is an easy and exceptional way to show appreciation for someone in your life, young or old. Support someone you love and support this channel by giving The Grateful Child. Click the link below to pre-order now, or simply scan this QR code. I am pretty sure your children need a copy. And your mom, your nieces and your nephews, your Grandpa Charlie too. Don't forget Grandpa Charlie. I think he'd love this. Make The Grateful Child a part of your life. It has been such an excellent part of mine.